Good evening and welcome to your Sunday night edition of this Ibrox podcast on a weekend where Rangers have clawed down the gap to Hearts, which will start on a positive. We'll obviously need to talk about the game, which might not be quite so positive. But my name's Iain Mitchell. I'm joined by JB and Hef tonight. Hef, we'll start with yourself. How are you? What's your initial thoughts on what you saw yesterday? Give us a little report of how it was for you.
That's like two different moods all in one. Right now, I'm fine. As I was leaving the game yesterday, I was desperate just to get on the bus and get up the road. 3 points and home, but yeah, terrible game of football. But in weeks gone by, we probably would have had a terrible game of football and not won. So I'll take the 3 points when we get them.
Very true. We're right now at a stage where it's just results that matter, obviously, albeit I was half falling asleep in the gantry yesterday. JB, same to yourself. How are you, of course? Bit different for yourself with the train cancellations as well yesterday that affected you. So how's the mood now compared to 24 hours ago?
Yeah, compared to 24 hours ago, 5 o'clock yesterday, everything was a bit of a panic. So I was booked on the 6:40, but then we made a rush after the game to try and make the 5:30. Got to Glasgow Central to find that all trains south were cancelled. So a wee bit of a panic, but luckily enough, a superhero in the name of Alan Anderson, who who's part of the Blackpool True Blues, cracking Gallen Pioneer favourite down there, pop in and see the lads. They had some spaces on their minibus, so we had to get back to Ibrox on the subway, and then they dropped us off at Preston, and then I was only home probably about 45 minutes later than the initial plan. So can't complain too much, but as you say, 3 points and up the road, 3 points and down the road, and cars, trains, and buses. But it was, it was all worth it. The only disappointing thing was as I jumped in the car, there was a 95th minute equaliser at St Mirren, 95th minute winner at St Mirren. I think that would have topped the day off to actually be okay if that hadn't gone in. But no, all good.
Very true. We'll come to that as well at the very end, just in terms of this title race that we're still just about in, I would say. Obviously a bit better this weekend in terms of the main difference to Hearts, so we'll come to all that. Hef, going right back to the start of the game yesterday, me and JB were on the pod on Thursday night last week talking about the centre-back problems and was it going to be Tav coming in? Were we going to see Fernandes? What was your thoughts on the lineup, having Fernandes and Jigger partner themselves together for the first time?
I don't think Jigger showed any sort of difference as to what we've seen of recent times. I don't think he's a great footballer at all. I think he's got physical attributes that do him quite well. I think he is quite strong. I think he is quite quick. But up against that number 9 that they had yesterday, or I don't know if he actually was the number 9, but their striker, he kind of got handled quite a lot. And I know the guy's a big guy, but he didn't really ever seem to get the better of him, at least on his feet. Sometimes up in the air.
Well, I think he's struggling, but because this is a guy that cost £10 million. I know Wolves spending 10 million is like us spending like 100k. I get the difference there, but it's a guy who good grounding at Red Star, played in Europe, played in a title-winning team. I'm pretty sure over there, played some games in the Premier League, and don't get me wrong, he didn't do anything spectacular down there, but he was playing, and now he's came up here and just can't do anything. Just seems really weak, which doesn't make much sense.
I don't know if it's one of those where he's on the cusp of being a good player and it looks as if he's on the rise. So then you jump in at 10 million and then you maybe steal it and then you think, well, you know what, maybe he pushes on and has another good season under his belt and gets better and then we sell him for 50, 60 million. Like that's obviously what they're looking to do, is try and get a bit of a coup there and a bit of a steal. But I don't know. I don't know what happened in, like, from what we had seen from, like, obviously being at Wolves and then from seeing the videos and stuff like that from where he was at Red Star and hearing reports that he was actually quite a decent centre half, and then from what we've got, is it the league? Is it just that it's a bit too physical for him? Because he seems like quite a physical lad, but is it that it's too quick? Maybe he's having to react to, he's not having enough time to see what's in front of him and it's a lot more direct. I'm sure he would have put up with that in Belgrade, but maybe not so much at Wolves, and it's kind of went out his head. I don't know. I really don't know, but I think if the game was played at 7 foot tall, Fernandes would be Champions League winning material, because in the air, he's phenomenal, but give him the ball at his feet and I want to look away for the next 30 seconds and I want to see a flash of white go up the park as quick as possible because he is murder with the ball at his feet. But when you're playing against teams like Livingston and they've just got big bodies up front, I don't think they played direct the whole game by any manner of means, but I think the fact that their out ball was to him, we had an answer. And I think for a long time, we probably haven't had an answer because we've maybe 50-50 those headers and sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. But I always had the impression that even if their centre-half had even if our centre-half had won the header or at least challenged for the header, it wasn't going to be the best outcome for the striker. Whereas when we were playing Dundee or when we were playing St Mirren and we weren't having those Fernandes and Jigger as a partnership at the back, I felt like sometimes they were able to control the game by just having that out ball and then winning the second ball in the middle of the park. So it definitely I think it definitely worked for that game, but I would be very scared going forward if that's the pairing. And I saw somebody comment there about Nsiala getting a chance. I don't see why not. I think we're probably going to have the easiest run of fixtures, bar Braga, for the season. So if we're ever going to see any light of day of these players, it's got to be in the next few weeks.
Yep, Luke's comment here is spot on. Like, if our defenders are struggling against that Livingston team, some tougher challenges to come. Yeah, slightly. JB, in spite of that, we start the game very well. Fernandes gets a goal. Scott Fry's obviously came in as the set-piece coach. 1 corner, 1 goal. It's not a bad start for him, obviously, but why did things tail off so quickly here? Because you get the goal, stadium's in a decent mood, the players look quite confident, everything's going pretty rosy, and then 1 long ball, yet again. Why are we so easy to play against every week?
I think it's mentality of this group of players, unfortunately. I think we've kind of said it for such a long time now. There was nothing there at all. As soon as we scored, it was almost back to form, right? Let's protect what we've got. What we should be doing in these situations, we've all know, it feels if we say it every week after a win, we should be going and putting games to bed, just really, really turning the screw, just taking all confidence away from these teams, but we just don't do it. And I almost think this group of players just don't seem to have that hunger to go that little bit quicker, that little bit faster. Delighted that the manager picked up on that and said it. I think previous managers probably would have tried to blow a bit of smoke up that performance yesterday, but I didn't feel as if the manager did do that. I actually thought James Tavernier in possession yesterday was really good. However, out of possession, I thought his attitude was horrendous at times in terms of slowing the game down. Like, the amount of times you see this from him when you're kind of like, no, we don't want to slow down. You might want to slow down, but we can't. Don't let these teams slow down. When you watch all the big clubs, when you see that with differential in finances like we've got against Livingston, the way that they do them, they suffocate them. They just don't give them an inch. As soon as they go 1-0 up, right, we'll go for another. We'll go for another. We're going to keep battling. We're going to keep. We're not going to let you rest at all. We're going to keep the ball in play as long as we can. But unfortunately, the likes of Tavernier and 1 or 2 others, and Raskin is probably another one I'll probably put into that category. Gasama, they want to play the game at their own speed. They want to do everything their way. So Raskin just wants to play easy balls when it suits. Gasama wants to go into little huffs if somebody kicks him, if he doesn't get a decision that he likes, if he doesn't get a good pass, he'll stop for the next few minutes. And I don't know how the manager's going to do it, but he needs to beat that mentality out of this group of players.
Why is that there, though? Because you know what it's like? See, like, even guys like us who've played fives or played amateur football, there's some games that you play and you're maybe the stronger team. Didn't happen to me very often, sadly. But when that is the case, you do kind of want that pride, you want that ego kicks in. You're like, oh, I want another one, let's score again. Surely these players in front of, I was going to say 50,000, but 40-odd thousand, we have to say, as it was. Why would they not just want to keep going and keep scoring and keep attacking? Like, there's a bit of a feel-good now since Danny Rose came in. Obviously 3 wins in a row, now 4. So there's no real massive negative that's like hanging over them the way there has been for most of this season. Why would they not just keep banging down the door?
I think it's that fear of conceding. And then once we do concede, it's, oh no, we're done. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like they're going to score again at some point if we're not careful, as opposed to having the attitude, we're going to win again. it is a lazy attitude, as the comments put in the chat there. In terms of winning the league, I know we'll get to probably that towards the tail end. There's going to need to be a mentality shift quickly from this group of players in order for something like that to happen, and it might just need to be freshness. I know. Again, we'll get through the squad and the subs and the impact, but there's nobody in that starting 11 yesterday for me, I would say, deserves to start based on their performances. Now, there's one or two you might say, well, you're not going to drop Gasama, for example, because you know that he's delivered some big moments this season. You can't afford to drop Raskin because you know the quality's there. Butland aside, I would say the rest of them, I don't think you'd class as more than a 5 or a 6 out of 10 this season in terms of performance levels. So if that's your base, it's not as if anyone can look to anyone and go, I'm going to be like him, because there's nobody showing anything from my perspective. Again, you don't want to be, obviously we can't be too negative because wins haven't been a gimme over the last few months. But that said, I think we've still got to kind of question the mentality and the kind of the attitude and the response that we're seeing to these big moments in games. I felt as if when we went 2-0 up against Dundee, it was almost just like really comfortable again. But they were there to be got at. And unfortunately, we've seen it in Europe. Teams will get at us. And we've also seen it with the team on the other side of the city. This season, teams are getting at Rangers and Celtic now because they can smell that weakness. And it was almost a case of, right, we'll go for them. Bruges absolutely annihilated us. That wouldn't have happened in years gone by with the with maybe some of the older pros and some of the players that wouldn't have stood for that type of performance. But yeah, it definitely needs a shake. And now, unless we're going to win games through footballing ability only, then great if we can do that. But I don't foresee that again with this group of players. So back to your question, why didn't we push on? I think it's a mix of mentality and let's have it right quality.
Hef, there's 3 comments that have come in from Hugo Bear, Robert Fisher, and David Craig. They're all very similar lines, almost kind of spot on with each other. About Barron, Cameron, and Curtis would have that hunger. And Robert said Barron by Rami and Cameron need to be starting games. And then David's comment about why is Curtis not getting any game time. Now, I don't know if this is that thing of players haven't played for a while, so they're now superstars, or just the case of we're so poor, we're so, mentality's questionable, it's a bit lazy from the players, it has to be said for some of them. Would those 3 or 4 guys change that, or is it just a case of this isn't working, so give someone else a shot?
I thought I was going to jump in there on what JB was saying about Raskin. I probably would. I get what you're saying about the quality, and I wouldn't drop him long term, but I would drop him for the next game. In the Falkirk game, I would drop Nico Raskin and give Barney a chance or give Cameron a chance, depending on who's going to be the kind of holding of the 2 midfielders, because I feel like when he goes away with Belgium, we always seem to get the dregs of what's left when he comes back. And I know that is because he's playing probably in a slightly more advanced squad that's demanding more of him. So therefore he has to up his game, and then he's maybe coming back with a bit of fatigue. But if that's the case, and we've got Barron, who albeit travelled to the Scotland team but didn't really see any minutes or anything like that, so I would have dropped him yesterday. And I think if his plan is to then play him on Thursday, then he's got to be dropped for Sunday, because I felt like he was. I feel like I'm saying this a lot this season, but I thought that was probably the worst he's played all year, and I can't figure out. Somehow. I can't figure out. See, when they were like that man of the match, I mean, everybody's response was the same: was you could have picked the name out of a hat, because nobody really stood out and showed that they were brilliant or anything. But
that's the sponsors wanting to get the photograph with Nico Raskin.
I know, and it's sad as well, because he is our best player on paper. He's the best player that we've got financially. He's the one that all the financial guys will be hanging their hat on to say, right, no, he needs to play. He needs to be on the shop window, and he needs to go to the World Cup, and he needs to have a blinder, and we need to sell him. I thought he was dross yesterday. I thought he was so slow. I saw the comment there about him jogging. Jogging, slack passing, just not really looking ever to make any sort of creation. But then when he wants to and he wants to turn it on, you see him drop the shoulder and break through, break the midfield and get into that kind of 10 position and start stuff. I don't know if that's Danny Rowell's telling him that that's not what he wants from him, but even if that is Danny Rowell telling him that that's what he doesn't want from him, is Raskin going to listen? By the sounds of things, he's a bit of a maverick. If he wanted to switch it on, I think he'd switch it on. So that he's annoying me now, and not from the point of view of I want to see goals and I want to see him assisting and all that. That would be brilliant. I just want to see a bit more effort and a bit more, like we're saying, a bit more guile to actually get involved in the middle of the park. Put him against a team that's green and white and he seems to be the star man. Same with Dio. Put him in the European games and he wants to try his best. Yesterday, no telly, no chance of any sort of coverage. Not interested.
It's only Levy kind of vibes, isn't it? It's also only
totally.
Livingston. Yeah.
Whereas you've got someone like Cameron or like Bajrami or whoever, who that's their chance to make some sort of noise about themselves, like actually stamp their mark on the team and say, well, I'm here too, like I can be an option. And I think if you've got players like that and they're crying out for chances, we go back to what the comment was about we look to the pitch beside us before we start signing players and stuff like that. We don't even look to the bench sometimes to give these players a chance. Like, if we're talking about players being on a 5 or a 6 every single week, I think JB obviously said it the other week when he was saying that obviously Bajrami must be absolutely honking in training, but it's not the only one. Cameron must not be doing anything. Barton must just be running through brick walls, like showing how strong he is in tackles and stuff like that. But how you can look at that team, the way that it's set up, and just go, nah, that's fine. I think the one with Finlay Curtis is different because Danny Rowell had came out and said Finlay's back. Now, that would suggest that he was obviously out for a period of, like, maybe he wasn't fit or maybe he was injured in some kind, or I think he had picked up an injury just after he had that wee spell with us and scored the 3 goals. And maybe he's just not match sharp enough to actually get back in the team. But I think Ant-Man probably played his best game, and I know that we'll go back to that. I thought that he was actually a lot better yesterday in moments, but that's not really saying much. I thought that in moments, and again, I'm not. That's
the
not
bar's very
much.
low. I realise the bar is on the floor with certain players, but
his very first game, then that yesterday, and then everything in between could just be mushed together into a melee of terrible performances. But if Finlay Curtis is fit and he can play, then I don't know why we're not really giving him a shot, or at least bringing him on. You know, and it's sad when we've got Lyle Cameron coming on at that stage in the game, and you feel almost as if it's like just see the game out. I'd like to actually see signs of what we saw from him last season for Dundee, which is obviously why we bought him, but we're not really getting that. We're getting you can play for a wee 30 minutes at the end of the game if we're cruising, or we'll throw you on when the game's already done, because what damage can you really do? Let the guy have a shot. As we said, we're no setting the world alight now, so maybe he is the one that would say, right, we're asking, you want to play, you want consistent time in the pitch, and you've earned it. Like, you're obviously a good player last season, and you've stood by Rangers and stuff like that, but your performances haven't been good. So if you want to play in this World Cup, you're going to need to play for your club. So we're going to be giving other players, and he won't be the only one that's saying, I'm going to the World Cup, I need to play football. And if a good bid were to come in for him, I would let Raskin go in January. I wouldn't hold on to him for the rest of the season.
I'd let any of them go, to be honest. There's not one player in that squad that could leave tomorrow and I'd be gutted, which is so damning, but I can't think of one that'd be sad. See the way when Igaman left, I was like sad that Igaman's leaving because he's got talent, he's great to watch, all this kind of stuff. I don't see anyone right now who has that tag. JB, I'm going to kind of keep with this thought, because on paper, Raskin, Diomande and Asgard is a midfield that seems, good on paper. Like I say, they're all coming into their prime years, still got a good way to go development-wise, all cost a decent bit of money to bring them here. Why can't they three in particular perform against a Livingston, against most teams in this league so far? What's not clicking there? Because we're talking about they're good footballers individually. They all go away with their countries and score and play well and get rave reviews. What's not clicking for those three right now? Because you said it yourself, no one's guaranteed a start here. especially those three.
Yeah, I said earlier, I can only assume it's attitude and mentality. There's plenty, there's loads of talent in there with them three. I actually thought Diamandi, I hope this isn't as wild a take as Hef's on Antman, but I actually thought that Diamandi was really good yesterday. Not European levels and Old Firm levels, but he did not stop running. And that's one thing you do see sitting up in the Gouverneur. You do see when a player's putting a shift in. He was everywhere yesterday.
He played a lot deeper. I noticed he was playing like beside the centre backs at the start of the second half.
Well, he was at one point, but then he scored a tap in. Do you know what I mean?
True.
That probably reinforces the fact that he was absolutely everywhere. He almost played for me yesterday a little bit desperate in the fact that he kind of wanted to showcase what he could do a wee bit. But again, he's I say he was there to obviously put the goal away. I thought his energy was really good yesterday. Raskin, I think we've spoken about him in terms of we know what he can do, and that's the frustrating thing with him. In terms of Asgard, I said it on a pod the other week. Kieran Dow levels in terms of what we've seen so far. There's an argument to say he's probably done as much as Kieran Dow's actually done in terms of his career prior to joining us. I mean, if he wasn't a Norwegian internationalist, we would see absolutely nothing from this lad. We would see nothing from this lad. I think we're all holding on to the hope that the fact that Norway are a good team with some really good players, some world-class players, but some good players around about them as well. So I think we're kind of hoping on the fact that we're buying that. It does feel as if he is believing his own hype a little bit. One of his early interviews, he was asked, "What is your playing style like?" It might have even been an interview that he'd done at Wigan or Luton, and he said, "Oh, Steve, I tried to model myself on Steven Gerrard, but with a bit of flair." He doesn't run. Like, he strolls through games. I mean, I was watching the highlights back a couple of times today. He actually done one really nice little bit of a movement where he took the ball in sharp and he turned it round the corner for Gasama. But then it feels like in his head that that's me done now. That's me done for a bit. I'll wait until the next time I can kind of do something. Doesn't play with any anger or aggression. Now, he got sent off the other week, but there was no anger or aggression in that. It was just stupidity. But he just needs a shake, doesn't he? And you'd like to thought being dropped against Dundee last domestic game, that might have give him the shake. Doesn't appear as if it did, because it didn't show me anything yesterday. In terms, I'd give Joe Rothwell a go in that position before giving him another run at it, because it can't be any worse. And I always say, when you look at kind of players' skill sets and ability, if a player for Rangers who's playing in a number 10 position cannot create a goal, cannot create goals, cannot score goals, cannot get shots away, can't link up play, then he shouldn't be playing. Pure and simple. Whether there's a piece in there in terms of, is the pressure coming from above in terms of your Antmans 3.5 million, your Asgard's 4 million, your Chimitis when he's been available, ridiculous money. Is there pressure there? We brought these high profile loans in, i.e. Giga. Are these guys having to play because of the situation that we're in terms of a Thelwell piece? One of the things I did find quite interesting when Roll was asked yesterday in terms of what are you looking to do in January. Was that pre or post match? I can't remember. I think it might have been pre-match, in terms of the players that you're going to look to target. And he said it all depends on availability and what contract they're on. And I thought, I didn't like that. It was right in the middle of everything. So most people probably just skip past it. But I thought, we've got players in here I think have probably got in their contract that are available, then they play, or something like that. You can only assume some of these players that we bought are going to be based on appearance fees as well, do you know, in terms of your add-ons and stuff like that. But let's play these players when they deserve to play, not because it's in a contract. Now, I know it's just as easy as that, probably going a bit football manager there, but there's hell of a lot of players in this team that do not deserve game time. And we need to learn about Fernandez, and unfortunately, he can't be any worse than De Giga. Fact, he just cannot. All he needs to start doing is turn around and start doing Liam Scales into the top corner. You know what I mean? That's the only way that he can kind of be any worse than what we've seen from De Giga so far. So no, I think we've just got to stick with him. I think NCR is another one. I think we need to get a look at some point. I think next Saturday's a chance to get another look at him, and there might be a bit of a mindset of we haven't got time to experiment. I actually think that we have, because we're not seeing anything from the players that are in them position. Magoma again yesterday. What's he in there for? If you're playing against Livingston, who are going to play like a 6-4-1 or whatever it was yesterday, or what was it, six, just the one up front, 5-4-1,
Yeah.
extra man. Felt like they had an extra man at times. Then you've got to be using your width. You've got to be getting wide, and you've got to be kind of penetrating down the sides. I can only really think of that Tavernier cross for Miovski's header at the start of the first half, where we actually got wide and put a decent ball into the box.
Yep.
We should be throwing, and you don't want to be throwing helpless balls in, because we've done that in years gone by. But when we've got so many attacking players on the pitch, we've got to be creating more chances than what we did yesterday. It's disgusting that Livingston have come to Ibrox and had a higher XG than us. Now, I'm not a fan of XG. I think it's nonsense. But the fact that they've come and done that, it's embarrassing. Do you know what I mean? And
I could do even better than that, because again, I like XG. I am a stat shagger, as they call them these days. But us and Livingston both had 9 shots each, 2 shots on target each. The corners were 2 for us and 1 for Livingston. And as you say, the XG was a good bit higher, especially at half time. It was about 3 times as much as Rangers. And Hef, if I switch it over to yourself, how are Livingston in pre-game? I said this in our post-match one yesterday. Pre-game, I thought Rangers would rob home yesterday. I looked at Livingston's squad, thought that squad would do okay in the Championship. It's not a top division squad at all. It's full of journeymen. It's full of guys who are way past their peak. How are they coming to Ibrox and, as those stats say, having a solid game with us, where they've been denied a penalty, which I'd be screaming for. We've had to rely on Butland to make a couple of massive saves, and our second goal, our winner, it's a little bit fortunate how it comes about in terms of nearly offside, this kind of stuff. How's that happening?
I thought that they just were right up for it. Let's see when you actually sit and watch the game, the amount of yellow cards that they obviously picked up, but then the amount of cards that they could have picked up through late challenges and getting stuck in and elbows in and putting their heads where they're not meant to, i.e. in front of Emmanuel Fernandez, which was absolutely horrific. I was sitting right in front of it.
You were right there, yeah.
You could hear the sound of the connection between the two, and I was like, that's awful. I felt sick. But see, just knowing that, like, that's how hungry they were, just to actually defend and stay in the game, was that they were putting their body on the line, and they just wanted to, like, throw themselves into tackles, and any chance that they had, what they don't have is a lot of quality, but what they do have is the technical gifts to actually be, like, they're athletes. They can run, they're strong, they might not get in the right position all the time, but their legs can kind of get them back into the right position. I don't know how many times Danilo took it by, and the first instance in the first half, where he takes the wee nip through the boy's legs, and I don't know if he just does it round the side of him or whatever, but he then makes connection, and you just want him to go, like, just go, just run.
No,
and
legs,
obviously,
but does it? Can't move.
He's at a standing position, and obviously they've kind of got maybe a wee bit more momentum, and I get that as well. But there's loads of times where we were obviously trying to break through and catch that pass just to be a bit more direct and play down the channels, and they just always seem to catch up with us. It's like our fast players aren't fast enough to be like, you could hang your hat on to, like, oh right, ping the ball to Vice, or ping the ball to any, like, even Matondo for last season or something like that. Like, I know he's absolutely horrendous, but you knew he was quick. Like, seeing these players where it was like, if we throw the ball to him and it's a race, he'll win it every time. We just don't seem to have quick enough players to be deemed as, oh, that's the quick player. And then the players who are technical aren't really technical enough to be like, oh, well, that's all they're good at. It's like we've got loads of people who are kind of good at a lot of things, but no one player that's like, that's what I'm really good at. I'm the free kick specialist, or I'm the guy who can take the ball in the 10 zone and just kind of drift it about and bring people into play, and I'll always get an assist, and I'll always take players on. we just seem to have loads of middlemen who are frightened to make mistakes. And I think the reason why they're frightened to make mistakes, I think he's all right. It's to do with obviously not wanting to put themselves out there. But I think there's a lot of this stuff with the statisticians, the sports scientists who take them in, and performance analysts, and look and say, right, you gave the ball away X amount of times, or you failed a dribble X amount of times. I think if they just pass the ball and keep it safe, then these black marks on their performance don't come up. It might not be great. It might not get to a 7 or an 8 or whatever, but they'll go under the radar, because if you don't try, you can't fail. So they're never going to break the mould and try and skip by a man or go into, because every time they give up possession, they'll get that black mark. So it's just like, no, you have it. It's like a game of hot potato. No, you have it, you have it, you have it, until eventually someone is in a position where it's like, well, I'll cross the ball, because if I put it into a good position and there's nobody there, at least I'll get some recognition for hitting a good cross into a dangerous area. I thought that we were talking about there, the lack of delivery into the box, like the lack of somebody just zipping down the line, and it's because they were just quicker, and just the boy number 7 for them was rapid. Every single chance, it was like a dog with a bone. Every single time there was a ball on his side, he was running at it and he was shutting us down. I don't know how many times what would it have been, their left back or left mid had the ball out and Ant-Man was just jogging over to him, not closing him down. And then the one that comes in for the ball, very, very nearly a goal. Like, I think it ends up hitting the post or the bar or something like that, but it was in the first half, and it was right in front of me, and it was really, really close. And I kept thinking, I was like, why is Ant-Man not closing him down? Just lack of, oh, he's not my man, I'm not taking the blame for that. Like, instead of just as a team, as a unit, going, there's an empty man, there's a bit of space, I'm going to go and close him down. Tav's dictating it, going, you go here, you go there, you go. There's two players, there's two of you. Just go.
That point
just
thing. See, every time we give a throw in away, or we're kind of defending some space, there was a point yesterday, quite late on, where Tav starts pointing to one of the Livingston boys. Raskin then points at him, and I can't remember the third guy. It might have been Fernandez or Jigger. One of them's just pointing. Just 3 of them are pointing. They're pointing at the one guy. Someone just move over. Like, it's so basic. And then even when no one moves, no one then takes accountability in that moment to say, right, hang on, none of us went there. Let's not do that again. It's just a kind of, that's your man. It's not my man. It's your man. Like, it's like even guys playing football.
See the one at the end of the game where Gasama gets fouled right on the byline, like right in that corner between the byline and the penalty box, and Tav tries to take that. It's an awkward free kick, but he goes to take it initially, and they all surge forward, and he's just like, yes. Whoa, just stop your lap. Just hit the ball into the box. Like, if somebody's made a run a yard quicker than what they were meant to, react to that. Don't then stop and go back. Like, how are you ever meant to get any sort of like flair into the team, any sort of impulse, if every single chance it's like it wasn't as bad, because I actually felt as if Danny Rule at the side of the park, right up until the very last minute, was screaming at them to move and get involved. He wasn't happy with it, which is good. I thought that it was very Martin-esque yesterday, in that every pass that could have went forward went sideways or back. Every time we broke through a line of defence and we had space to travel into, we just stopped, or we played it back, and it was just, there was no flow, there was no fluidity. Everything just seemed to be staggered and measured. And I think sometimes being staggered and measured works well when you're trying to tease out a team. Not when you've got 10 men who are quite happy just to sit in the box and go, aye, paddle it about at the back all you want. We'll take this all day long. It's pathetic in the sense that we've got players like you said who are on tens of thousands of pounds a week who are frightened to try and challenge Danny Wilson, who is very much at the end of his career, albeit has had a good career. But if you don't think that you could nick by him and test his legs and see how agile he is still at what must nearly be, 35, 36 up there.
Close enough,
how,
yeah, I guess.
How could you not at least try and nick the ball by him and do something, or at least have the belief that you could? It's weird that Asgard doesn't get mentioned often in these situations, and it's because if somebody didn't remind you that he was on the park, you would never have known he was there. He's that, like, he's just so insignificant in the
Just
team.
nothing.
He's
nothing.
Terrible. And like you said, Kieran Dowell is similar. Kieran Dowell scored that absolute belter against Motherwell or Kilmarnock, I think it was, as well. So they've both got to in very similar position in the park as well.
He didn't cup his ear though, so it's not quite as bad. He just celebrates.
Nah.
So.
Yeah.
One up for Kieran.
He's not got a cool haircut either.
True. Get Dill back in. I feel that's the point you're making.
That's the answer, isn't it?
Take it. Yes.
Click that.
JB, someone we've not talked about too much is Gasama. I put that image on today of that chance he has where, I'll say it again, Champions League Gasama just hits that shot first time on his right foot, goal, and that puts it in a 2-1 lead because the game's still 1-1 at that point. It's just before we do get the goal here. What's wrong with Gasama? Because this isn't the guy that we saw from the start. So is this the real Gasama, or is the guy that we saw those first few weeks and months the real one? What's going wrong there? Because for me, Danny Rowe's the perfect coach for him, a guy that's worked with him for years, raved about each other when that appointment was made, but he's just not kicked his arse for a few weeks now.
Yeah, I think we're seeing the reason why he's here, and he only cost us 2 million. Fact, at the end of the day, there'd have been scouts looking at him because it's a dog-eat-dog world down there. All them championship clubs would have seen him. They'd have all played against him at least twice last year, unless they've obviously gone up or down. So therefore, they would have had a chance and they could have blown us out the water quite easily if they wanted to. There's no doubt there's ability within there. He unfortunately is falling into the category of picking and choosing when he switches it on and off. There was a few times yesterday where he got like a little kick and then that was in done then for 10-15 minutes. And don't get me wrong, if you're injured, you're injured. I get that. But it was almost the case it was the arms flowing. Now, we got asked to go over to the right wing, and I thought, oh, let's see how this lands now, because he obviously prefers it down the left. And he moped over there slowly, surely. And I think it might have been Diamandi went up to him, kind of tapped him in the chest, or it was one of the midfielders, tapped him in the chest and said, right, go on, like, when you can do it type of thing. And then the first chance that he got was that one, and you just put your laces through it, lads. Do you know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, if he drops the shoulder, there's a reason why we're all sitting here podding, and he's getting the chance to skip past the defender in front of 40-odd thousand fans. But you've got to then score. Do you know what I mean? You've got to then at least hit the target. Now, I know Danilo did actually run across his line in terms of finding that perfect shot into the corner, but he's right-footed. He's kind of shown that he's not that comfortable on his left foot. I can't picture him doing anything with his left foot so far. All of his good work, as you said, in Europe's been done cutting in on that right foot. He's got power in there. Do you know what I mean? So, Miovski done really well. It would actually been a really good team move goal if that had come off. And you just wonder, well, that's the way we would like to play, because it was quick, it was aggressive.
Started with Bayrami down the left, didn't it?
Yeah,
I don't know if he won the ball back, but he looked fast actually, which I didn't really know Bayrami had. And again, it's very low bar, but yeah.
Can we not just refer to him as the Albanian prince because that's what he is?
Yes.
But yeah, he was really good ball across, and Miovski done really well, really good hold up play. Round the corner, bang, just put it to bed. 2-1 up, and then I think that would give everybody just that little bit of lift going into the last, whatever it was, 10-15 minutes. But yeah, not taking that chance, and then I think in the whole, we're just seeing glimpses of him, aren't we? There hasn't been many games where he's contributed over the 90 minutes and looked like a threat every time. It's almost as if he's got an underlying hamstring injury or something that means I'm not going to open up. Because when he does go, he goes. Do you know what I mean? You can see him skipping that first game before Russell Martin got his hands on him. That first game, he was skipping past players as if he weren't there. He was aggressive. He was cutting inside. He was banging balls into the top corner, Panathinaikos. And you think, oh, this is it. Like, this is a player. Even in that game, he done 2 or 3 really good, energetic moves. We just haven't seen it since. So, yeah, he's won that. And he's won no international football while we were away as well. I thought, right, I think he could turn up tomorrow. I was thinking yesterday, on Friday, but again, just nothingness, which is disappointing because, as I say, like with most of them, there is some ability within there, but again, they're kind of demonstrating that there's a lot of players within that Rangers squad that we are going to make a financial loss on, and he's starting to fall into. He will fall into that category if he doesn't kind of start putting it together.
Yeah, you just wonder if it is like a squad thing, a competition thing, because it's like any Rangers team, any good team needs options. It needs guys on the bench who are pushing the ones that are starting. And Hef, the more that game was going on yesterday, I was kind of where we are at the gantry. Obviously, you look down at the subs a lot of time, try and see who was warming up. There was never much in terms of that bench that I thought, he can come on and change the game. I mean, obviously comes on at half time, obviously, and done all right. As I said there, he didn't do great, but done okay. But we talked about right at the start in terms of certain guys aren't getting a chance. Would you be using Thursday night in terms of Braga, of giving, Curtis, Barron, Cameron a start? Bayrami's not in the squad, obviously, because of the European cut-off, so that's one name who won't be featuring. But do you use Thursday as a trial, or do you, I was going to say go strongest 11, but I don't think anyone knows right now what a strongest 11 properly looks like. How would you go about dealing with Thursday?
I suppose it depends what the mindset is. If the mindset is that we do still want to pretend that we've got some sort of chance of fighting in Europe, then you go with, as you said, the strongest 11, whatever that may be. I can't imagine that your strongest 11 will include Cameron or Barn, given the fact that they've not really featured all that often. So
yep.
I think time will tell on Thursday when we see the team sheet. If we do see those players in it, I think either it's a way of saying that we're not as bothered about Europa League going forward, and therefore we're quite happy to concede it if it means that we're getting some more consistency in the league.
Would you do that? Just if say you are Danny Rowe in this example, would you just patch Thursday night in terms of putting out, again, weaker team? But that's what I'd be doing. I've kind of wrote off Europe myself personally, so I wouldn't be against giving Curtis a start, giving Barron a start, and just building minutes into them as much as anything. I know every game in Europe has financial gain. I think you get like £500,000 for a win, so there is things to play for, obviously, and technically we're still in it. But I don't really care about Braga. I mean, personally honest, I'm more focused on Falkirk on Sunday than whatever Thursday's going to throw at us.
I think money talks, and I think that the minute that a manager is seen to be kind of down in tools in Europe, especially at our level, you see it in the Premier League where they put in a lot of youth players and stuff like that for these games, but generally they're doing that because they recognise that their youth team could probably beat a lot of the kind of lower teams in the Europa League or the Conference League and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, I think Danny Rule probably gets dragged over hot coals if he's starting in Ciala, and I don't even know if he can start in Ciala.
No,
but
he's not it.
If he starts these so-called less seen players, then I think he gets a drag into the office and saying, "Why are you throwing these games?" And I don't think that you could even use the argument of, "But we want to keep the players fresh for Sunday in a game that we should be winning anyway, probably." So, it's a hard take because any fan sitting there isn't going on Thursday thinking, "Oh, this is a good chance to pick up some points," even though this is a team that in recent years we've beat. So that's kind of sad in a sense.
They're also sitting 7th in Portugal right now on pretty poor form themselves, which I was randomly looking at earlier to try and get some hope going. But I don't think it's quite the Braga that we have faced, albeit we are nowhere near the Rangers that have faced Braga. So it's kind of two weaker sides this time.
I think it's easier to look at who we're playing when we know how we're playing, and you can think, oh, well, if we're on our game, we could probably beat anybody at Ibrox. That was always the kind of mindset of European football. Even I remember going to the Liverpool game and the Ajax game when we were in the Champions League in the group stages, and you thought, if we get an early goal here, and you're thinking, now I would be miles away from that. As I said, I'm going ahead on Thursday to the game against Braga, and I think that we could win the game, but I've not got that same how many are we going to score, that confidence that we could probably see off. Oh, well, that's a team that we should be beating at home. Now we're sitting going, yeah, we should beat Livy and we should beat Falkirk at home, whereas before they weren't probably even discussed as potential slip-ups. It was more afterwards you would have been shocked at the slip-up that had occurred. I would like to see him maybe rest some players, or at least play Chermiti or play players that he could maybe get away with saying, "Oh well, Chermiti's an £8 million player. I'm obviously going to play him," even if he did think Miovski was probably a better player if it means that resting them. But no, I wouldn't be surprised to see Barron because, as I said, I thought Raskin had played some minutes, and I think Barron actually does feature regularly in the European squad because he has a bit of legs.
Shoots it more, doesn't he? Yeah.
He's a bit dogged and he can get in, and I always hate saying that about him because it totally depletes him as a player, is that he's a bit of a dog in the middle of the park. But you need that, and I think it's important in these games that you have the balance of somebody that is a bit better technical and then someone who's ready to get stuck in, especially when we're playing against a lot more technical players in Europe that maybe aren't up for that challenge in the middle of the park. So having someone in there, I think Barron does fit in nicely. But I don't think we'll see Cameron unless he's not going to start at all, probably. But I wouldn't be surprised if Asgard plays as poorly as he does, that position is up for grabs, whoever it is that wants to come in and take it, whether that be going with two up top again, like he changed it to at half time, or maybe playing Cameron, or as we said, someone else could maybe Diamante could move forward into that role and someone else could fit. There's the one thing that we can say about the middle of the park is there is a lot of adaptability. There's a lot of versatility in there that some players are better at others than at doing some things, but all of the players, maybe bar Asgard, obviously couldn't play in that 8 role, but the rest of the players can all get stuck in and do their bit when needed to across that 3 kind of triangle in the middle that he's trying to play with. Like, take Asgard out of that. If you just have the 10 and the 2 8s, like he's been saying, I think any of them could have their go at that. It's just we are now in nearly December and we don't know what that best mixture is yet, which is
it's like there's lots of options, just not any very good options, which is a nice.
I know standouts.
Horrendous
standouts to say that's my position. Like, don't you dare move me. Like we said, nobody would be. You couldn't be mad about anybody being subbed on Thursday, and likewise, you couldn't be angry at anybody being sold in January because the squad is ticking along, but there's no stars shining through.
Not at all. JB, in spite of how negative this has been for 48 minutes now, we are somehow in a title race, I guess. It's kind of reminded me of that Little Britain thing with like, how'd you get here? I fell. We saw Celtic yesterday sort of win, obviously. Much the same as us. Terrible performance, but get the win. That's what us like then need to do just now. But Hearts dropped points today. Good weekend, I guess, overall, despite this kind of negative cloud that we're going through. It's on paper, it's been a good weekend, right?
Yeah, I think it's just frustration, isn't it? I think there's almost a case of we just want to kick on. Like we just want to. I think everyone to a man thinks there's ability there. Is there enough ability? I think there's still a massive question mark. I think there's a lot of potential within this team to kind of kick on and go for it, but we just still haven't seen them do it. I think in terms of the weekend as a whole, I say it's a sickener it was a sickener in terms of seeing them score that last minute winner, because I think that could have potentially been a little bit of a momentum shift. Do you know what I mean? In terms of that would have been down to 3 points. They've then got to go to Hibs next week. We've got a game against Falkirk at home. All of a sudden, you might be on the same points of them, or if not better goal difference. I'm not worried about Hearts at all. I think in terms of they were very much, once they played everybody once, I think I said this on Thursday, once they played everybody once, everybody's seen what they're all about, and then that's when you really judge them. Do you know what I mean? How many times have we seen it with Aberdeen, start of last season? There was guys looked unstoppable, unplayable. I remember people saying, that Jimmy Fallon should be the next Rangers manager. There was a handful of their squad. People were saying, he's brilliant, he's this, he's that, he's the other. We should be signing Scott. I was going to say Scott Nesbitt then. we should be signing the boy Nesbitt. And lo and behold, it kind of the bubble burst quite quickly. We've got to keep an eye on them over the other side of the city, and we've just got to keep doing. Winning yesterday was the most important thing. I don't think we can get away from that.
Yep.
One thing about them is if we can put pressure on them, I think their fans will turn quicker than ours. I think they've modelled that quite well. They're not the most hinged group of fans. I think that's probably because of the fact they haven't been on the floor as many times as us, so we know when to get ourselves up.
So we know real pain at this point.
You know real pain, yeah. You don't know the half of it. But yeah, I think it's almost a case of we just need to keep going. I think I said to somebody earlier today, or it might have been yesterday, whoever goes on to win the league will be the worst ever team to win certainly a league in the last 20, 30 years, because the standard at the moment within the top, well, I'm going to say, let's give Hearts the credit. The standard of the two Old Firm clubs at the moment is horrendous. It was kind of summed up in that 0-0 first Old Firm game of the season, where it was just okay, this is horrific. And even if you go back to the semi-final, there was no quality on show. Do you know, like the only quality you could say was there would be Callum McGregor. He is probably the standout when it does come to quality in big moments. We haven't got anyone like that. We've got nobody when the chips are down who's going to go, he'll pull us out of a hole. Don't get me wrong, Tavernier might do it with a penalty, and he scored some massive goals for us over the year. He's got that ability, but he's a right back. That's not his job. His job isn't to be scoring goals. We've just conditioned ourselves to be too reliant on him. Instead, we've seemed to have filled our team and squad full of non-match winners, which is really disappointing. If someone says Rangers are going to win 1-0 on Sunday, or even Thursday, who's it going to be? You're going to guess it's Tavernier, which is a damning statement on the rest of the take out the back four and the goalkeeper, on the remaining players, because
look at yesterday for the perfect example. He gets the assist for the first, he sets up Majovski for the second, he puts Cameron through towards the end. The big moments are still
going
in that
to him.
attacking sense.
Yeah. And it's I think it's just because there's not enough players hungry enough to do it, or they're petrified to give the ball away. Somebody made a good point for me yesterday. Rangers putting that tweet out the other day with Nico Raskin's made X amount of passes and he's made X amount of tackles in today's game. What his job? I mean, I don't want to not going all Roy Keane here, but like he's a holding midfielder whose job is to tackle and pass the ball. Now there was a 1-1 yesterday. It was Raskin was doing 1-2s with Magoma, and it was 1-1. And it's like, is he just getting his pass stats up so then he can go? His agent can turn around and go 95% pass completion rate for all the stat wankers out there. Do you know, like, sorry, Iain. It's like, but then there will be people saying, look at his passing stats; they're unbelievable. They're 95%. You can't drop him out the team. He's the best passer of a ball. When was the last time he had an assist?
I was going to say, even if you look at yesterday, can you think of one moment Raskin done anything that made you go, oh, that's where he is, that's the player there? There's nothing. And that's the thing, if you have Raskin doing that, Diomande scores, so I'll cut him some slack here, but Gasama not doing anything memorable. Sorry, Hef, but Ant-Man doing nothing that I can remember in a positive light. You need one or two of them to stand up against a Livingston. And
I think Hef was playing FIFA too much. That was his problem. These 40-year-old fellas playing FIFA should be given it a rest. But
still not 40.
But yeah, no, I think in terms of that, Barry Ferguson hit the nail on the head with Nico Raskin. He's not for us domestically. He's not a number 6. He might be a number 6 surrounded by world-class footballers. Do you know what I mean? But he's not a number 6 for Glasgow Rangers and he might be a number 6 in Europe because, again, it's a different challenge. Nico Raskin's a very clever and talented footballer, but he's not a talented footballer as a number 6 for Rangers. All of his best performances since he's been here, whether it be Old Firm games, European games, tail end of last season, have all been when he's been that aggressive, bombing on type of player. We just haven't had anyone that we could hold our hat on to kind of hold the midfield. I think the thought process that Joe Rothwell could do that job, but unfortunately you do need to be able to run. which unfortunately he can't do. I definitely think that's a position that we've got to address in January. I know it's probably not the most important, but in order for us to get more out of our midfield,
I think it is, just to completely cut you off. I think that is the key. Someone that can control a game.
And I know only because I had the discussion the other day, and somebody said, "Oh no, it's definitely a centre half or it's definitely a forward." I agree. I agree on both points. However, a holding midfielder that can actually get across the pitch and can take the ball in difficult situations and can turn, and everything we were getting told we were getting with Rothwell. If we get that type of player in there, then all of a sudden you might start seeing more from your likes of your Raskins, your Diamandis. I'm not going to say you're at your Asgards because he's not being asked to do anything defensively anyway. So we're not going to see much difference in him. But we just need an absolute monster in the midfield that can go in and do that job for us. And I get there's not many of them. You look at the money that's been paid on the likes of Casado and Declan Rice and Makaleli going back a wee bit further. It's not an easy position to find players, but they're definitely out there. But I think it's something. I don't think they need to be spectacular either. Do you know what I mean? I don't think it needs to be someone who's going to pick the ball up and spray Steven Gerrard like 70-yard passes. It just needs someone that is composed. So, and again, not all Stephen Davises don't grow on trees. But if Stephen Davis was in this Rangers team today, what you'd find is he'd just do all the little 5-10 yard passes, forward passes into pockets of space. He'd coordinate and dictate. Barron, I think, has got that in certain games. I mean, our best midfield three performance that I've seen in the last couple of years from a Rangers team would be the Old Firm performance away last year when you seen was it Raskin, Diamandi, and I'm going to say it was Barron. Was it Barron the midfield?
I think so. That sounds familiar. I think for a little spell we had those three that worked really well. Yeah.
And Egerman scored late on. That midfield three complements itself really well at the time for that type of game. However, what we need domestically is we need probably one or two of them within that position. But then you need everybody else to be stepping up, and we need some energy in there. So it's definitely one over the next few weeks. We need energy and we need legs within that team.
We do. Hef, we'll give you the final thought then. Obviously, Braga coming up, Falkirk at the weekend. There's a point from David here, which is true. We've only lost once in the league despite this shambles of a squad, I guess we need to say. Daniel's doing a very good job. Is this a little bit dramatic from us, or are we right to be worried? Because again, the stat shagger in me thinks, well, you can't keep getting away with games like yesterday. It's going to kind of run out. Gio, I think, done this. I'm sure if I remember back, it was in Gio's spell. Maybe it was Michael Beale, both of them probably, where you would win games that you wouldn't play well. You would just kind of sneak it, and that runs out eventually. Do you think that's going to happen here, or are you going to give Roll some time to find something that clicks?
I think it's hard to judge Rule on what it is, like if he's been able to actually implement any sort of real change. I think he's made quite a big point about, even in that recent press conference pre-game, he was saying, "Oh, I don't know about my style. It's not about my style. It's about winning games." I think he's very quickly came in and said, "This is how I would like to play. However, I don't have the personnel to do that. So I'm just going to have to make us as solid as possible and hope that some players can take on some sort of forward-thinking knowledge or ingenuity to actually try stuff themselves." And I think that's maybe why we're seeing that kind of lack of creativity, that lack of fluidity, is that we're probably the club are probably being coached in such a way that it's all about damage limitation rather than going forward and pressing teams and scoring multiple goals. It will just be about getting points on the board. And I get your point about the Gio situation, but I don't think it's got to that stage just yet, because I felt like when it was Gio's time was up, it had been up for a long time, and we were winning games, but it was absolutely chronic to go and watch. It was games where if it was an away game, you were questioning whether or not you would have stuck out the full 90 minutes, or whether or not you'd have nipped out and done your Sunday shop or something. It was because, and that was the sad thing about it, was you knew we were going to probably win, but it just wasn't going to be enjoyable. So you just caught the result at the end of the game. 2-1, great, cheers, up the road. So no, I think it is a bit dramatic, probably, but I think it's fair to say that the performance yesterday was poor. Like, we shouldn't be scraping wins against Livingston, regardless of whether it's we're still picking up points or anything like that. The performance was rank, so it needs to be called out. And I don't think that, like we said, it's a great weekend because we've got what, 9 points off top with a game in hand. There's every possibility that we push on, and by the time it comes to after Christmas, we're in some sort of contention. So yeah, I'm happy, but I'm not as happy as I could be.
I feel like that's the most positive we're going to end on this. That we're okay right now. But we'll see. As I say, we'll end it there. It's been a good hour of ranting a little bit, but we have won. It's been a good weekend. We'll take that every weekend. We're back on Tuesday night with more of an eye on the Braga game, and then we'll be live from Ibrox on the Braga game on Thursday night. But just to leave it there, any likes, of course, always welcome. Any subscribes, always welcome, as I say, every few days at this point. So thanks for joining us tonight. We'll see you next time. Cheers.